Hello and welcome to Unshackled with Tash. Hope everyone's had an amazing week and I hope that you have all enjoyed last week's podcast on red flags and green flags. If you haven't caught up, it's definitely one to look into. It's been such a topic that a lot of people have reached out and said, wow, that was me, or wow, I've done that. So guys, if you haven't already, jump in and have a listen. It follows through from Emma Butler's abuse and how she got away from a narcissistic partner, and as she explained in that podcast, that was quite a challenging and tumultuous time for her. And I won't say what happened because for those that haven't listened to it, it's a great story. And the red and green flags were carried on from that. So what I decided to do this week was, again, try to give some information on what it takes to move yourself out of those situations, and that is by healing, okay? And what I want to discuss today, and I'll do it with lots of different levels, is why healing feels lonely and what are the signs that you're actually growing, because this is where a lot of people get confused in this area. And basically, why healing feels so lonely is because you begin to see what you once tolerated, okay? And it's a tough period to go through, because when you start to heal, you start to see what you used to allow to happen to you, or what you have done to other people. This is not a one-sided thing, okay? Healing is, like I always say, is facing that mirror. And the things you may have tolerated, like disrespect. I'm just going to go through a few things here. One-sided relationships and friendships. Emotional inconsistency, that push-pull, that avoidant type person. Being interrupted or dismissed, which always goes back to a childhood wound. Being contacted only when someone needed something. Now, I know I was definitely that person for a lot of people, but again, hands up, my fault for not healing to stop that type of behavior. They were my needs being met by doing this for other people. Constantly explaining yourself, the over-explainer. Being the fixer, rescuer, or emotional support person. Hands up. And I've said this before, it is that fixer and rescuer and looking for a project, okay? When you are unhealed, that's the type of stuff that you put up with. But part of when you are starting to heal, these are the things you start to look at and you think, wow, like, did I do that? Wow, how did I allow that? Okay. And then the awareness can be freeing, but at the same time, it can also be very heartbreaking, okay? Because you start to recognize the patterns within yourself that people only liked you for a certain reason and you fulfilled a need of theirs by doing what you did, but you were actually abandoning yourself. So some people loved your usefulness. Some people loved your silence. Some people loved your lack of boundaries. That's a big one. And some people loved the version of you who never challenged them. Now, what that means was those times where you said yes when you really wanted to say no, where you agreed with somebody but you really didn't agree, but you didn't want to upset the apple cart. You didn't want to, say anything against the grain, because that could cause being ostracized. It could be pushed out of the group, could be not belonging, could be gossiped about. I know everyone's sitting here thinking, oh yeah, I've done that, yep. Or I've either done it to someone or I've had it done to me, okay? And like I say, this is not a blame game. It's never a blame game. It's an awareness, okay? And the sad thing is your relationships may have been built around survival patterns, which I spoke about in the red and green flags, and I've spoken about in the blueprints. And many people unknowingly form relationships through people pleasing, rescuing, overgiving, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, needing to be needed, okay? And ask yourself this, were you genuinely loved for who you were? Or were you valued for what you provided? That's a big one, guys. And this is where it's really hard to sit in that, because this is the stuff you've done for so long. And in my case, I did it for 5 decades. I didn't know any different. I didn't know any better. Okay. And when I recognized my patterns and what I used to do to feel loved, to feel wanted, to feel needed, to feel like I belonged, oh gosh, I was mortified. Okay. But again, my wounds. So the important distinction here is generosity is healthy when it is chosen, and overgiving is often driven by fear, which is why people do the people pleasing, because they fear all that, what I just mentioned, being ostracized, not belonging, people thinking you've changed, being pushed out of the group, being gossiped about. Nobody likes that. But that's all our self-worth stuff. That's all our needing to, fit into the mold that they have created for us. And the ruthless truth is that some relationships do not survive our healing, okay, because they were never built on equality. They were built on your self-abandonment. And that was me. Again, not a blame game. This is my lesson of I gave and I gave and I gave and I gave, okay? And I gave for my own needs because I needed those needs met. And I gave because of my abandonment, my rejection, my fear of being, alone and things like that. I gave for the love. I gave so it filled all my core needs, which I've spoken about. But what happened was when I stopped giving, when I started to heal and I stopped being the one available and I stopped making all the contact and I stopped ringing and I stopped texting, it became very, very quiet. And at first that was a hard pill to swallow, like really hard pill to swallow. So the sad thing is your relationships with some of these people were 100% built on really unstable foundations and no equality. And again, that's on the person that's the giver, because it's our wounds that have made us do that, right? And you stop performing your old role. People know you as a particular version. And I've had people say, you're so different. You've changed. You don't do this anymore. You're selfish. Yeah, I have changed, because a lot changed me. I'm no longer the people pleaser. I'm no longer the person that can be manipulated. I'm no longer the person that can be controlled. I'm no longer the person that can be gaslit. I'm no longer the person that falls for the stories or listens to the future faking. I don't do any of that. I used to. Everything revolved around me gravitating to anybody that could tell me, what I needed to be loved, needed to be seen, needed to be heard. So every family, friendship, group and workplace can develop roles in us. Now, I'm going to list these for those that you tick this and you'll know that I'm talking to you. So you may have been the strong one, the funny one, the peacekeeper, the dependable one, the one who never complained, the one who held everyone together. Now, how many of you sitting there going, yeah, that was me? And healing may involve stepping away from that role. And that's really, really tough, guys. It's really tough to step away from a role that you played for so long. And usually I'm speaking to people that are in their adult years. So there are decades of this work happening and role playing. So people may react because you've changed, which affects their system, okay? And this is where it becomes lonely, because you don't have a bond with a lot of people. And it's not anyone's fault. It's how it is when somebody starts to grow and heal. When you stop playing your old role, people who benefited from that role may accuse you of changing, okay? They are right. We change. When you do the work, you change. You're no longer available. You're no longer there for the role that you played in their life. And what people forget is people get upset when they don't know who you are anymore, because they know how to handle that version of Tash or whoever you are. They know how Tash works in that role. But when Tash changes or somebody else changes, it is scary for them, okay? Because they also grieve the old version of you, all right? And one of the biggest things people get caught up on is they feel betrayed. They feel like you've neglected them, but you haven't. You've actually stopped abandoning yourself, and you've actually set boundaries, and you've actually grown in a way and healed in a way that you don't need all those boxes ticked by somebody else anymore. And that's what people struggle with, especially family members, and especially in a dysfunctional family, which I came from. You just put up with it. That's just who they are. That's what you do. And stop being a whinger and stop making a big drama out of everything. And it wasn't. I knew in my heart and in my soul that things weren't right. But I was criticised so often about being a troublemaker. Same in my workplace. I am actually that person who could read a room, and I am what they call a empath. So I have pattern recognition like no tomorrow. I've had it ever since I was a child, and I never understood it until I did the healing. And I can pick what's going on in a room within seconds. I can pick when people are not getting on. I can pick when somebody's got something going on, and it might not be about me, but you can feel the energy, okay? Pattern recognition was something I got good at because of my upbringing, because of the unpredictability and the walking on eggshells and the conditional conditions in my home. So I had to know patterns. And it's a great gift, but it's also a curse, okay? So when you no longer bond through when you no longer bond because of your change, it changes how people see you, okay? And some relationships are held by or held together by gossip, drama, complaining, shared resentment, constant crisis, and rescuing one another. Now, I was 100% guilty of all of that. I look back now to a particular group I was in, and I used to think that we were a pretty damn good group until I stepped out of it and realised how much everyone gossiped about everybody. Nobody was safe. For some reason, I thought I was safe when I was in it. But now I go, hang on a minute, if we were gossiping about that person, they're sure as hell gossiping about us when we're not around. So it's not that they're toxic, it's how we all formed and had a foundation together. So that is, that is one of the things that you'll find, that you don't want to sit and gossip anymore. You won't want to sit and complain. When you start to do the healing, your language changes, okay? And so that then becomes lonely again, because you pick up a phone or you contact somebody, you don't have any alignment anymore. And it's not that person's fault and it's not your fault. You just don't align anymore because you don't have any of that in common anymore. And this is where people get really upset. And when you begin healing, these conversations, they feel draining because you don't have the need to gossip. You don't have the need to compare. You don't have the need to complain. You don't have the need to have all those core needs met by those unhealthy interactions, okay? And you may find you have less to say in certain rooms, which I 100% found that. And I was criticised for being, moody, and I wasn't moody. I just didn't have anything to say. I was told that many times to get over whatever I was going through, and I've mentioned this before. It is the worst thing you can say to somebody that's going through major trauma, because you can't just get over it. It's in your nervous system. And they're the kind of friends that couldn't handle the change in you, and they just wanted it back to the way it was: fun, happy, crazy, laughter, gossiping, all that stuff that we did. But when you're not in that anymore, you can't actually do it. And that's where that silence can feel like really, really lonely, okay? But the important part here is you may not miss the relationship itself. You may miss the familiarity, the routine and sense of belonging. And that is 100% what most people miss. It's not the banter. Oh, sorry, well, yeah, it is a bit of the banter, but it's not the gossiping. It's not the complaining. It's not the resentment conversations. It's not the jumping on bandwagons and smear campaigns and just general rubbish. And one of the biggest things I realized that a lot of people do, and I was also guilty, was our partner bashing, right? Because when somebody else is unhappy and you have that connection with someone, you'll talk about stuff that's going on. And as they say, misery loves company, okay? That is so unhealthy. And the one thing I've learned now was a lot of stuff should have been spoken at home, not in outside areas, because you're going to get advice from people, which I didn't understand till this. You're going to get advice from people that are wounded, that have got their own stuff going on, that are going through divorces or having affairs or not happy or drinking or substance abuse or just not available to their partner. Like, you're going to get, your feedback and your advice from people that are not healed themselves. And I was 1,000,000% guilty of that. I look back to that now and yeah, you can't change it. And this is why I'm so passionate about helping people heal their wounds and heal their childhood wounding and trauma, to help people understand that healing is the way to go. But it is lonely, but it's not lonely for long. And I do promise you that. And healing is not gaining a new life. It is grieving. Here's a few things: who you were, what you tolerated, the years you lost. And that was a big one for me. The love you hoped people would eventually give you, the apologies you may never receive, and the family or relationship you wish you had. Okay? And this is a really good time to reflect on what came up for you as I read those out. And there were times in my own healing when I had to accept that certain people were not capable of meeting me where I was at or where I was going. And that was tough. I lost like 30 plus year friendships. And was it hard? 100%. Did I cry a lot? Absolutely. Did I question what kind of friendships they were? I was lied to. I was deceived. There was a lot of stuff. And in the end, I had to actually recognize that a lot of these friendships were not solid. I believed they were because I had a story in my head that I was important to them and they were important to me, and I can't imagine my life without them. But once you start to heal, you actually sit back some days and go, oh, dear Lord, how did I get there? You even do that when you go back to some of your partners, not all of them. Some of your partners, you go, oh gosh, but it was because it was such an unhealed version of yourself. And it's what you tolerated, okay? And it's not a judgment and it's not a criticism of anyone else. It is how it was. It's because you were unhealed. But when you're healed, you can see the wounds that you had that attracted those type of people. And boy, oh boy, that's an eye-opener. So here's the thing. Keep this part of you accountable, okay? Make sure that when you start to recognize your own patterns, and if you're on this healing journey or you want to start to become on this healing journey, it's not about blaming other people. It's about owning your stuff. It's about recognizing the part you played in the choices you made, the decisions you made, the people you attracted. And I'm not talking abuse. I'm not, and I'm going to say this every time I talk about this type of topic. This is not about condoning abuse or narcissistic behavior, but there is a part of us that attracted that person. And this is men and women, because it's not just women that attract narcissistic partners, okay? Men do too. And I've worked with a lot of men that have found themselves in that situation. But they don't come forward because people don't believe that a man can be treated like that. Trust me, there's a lot of men out there that are suffering as much as women. And I spent my entire life working with men. And I used to see it in the ambulance, but I just never ever recognized what it was. I just thought it was normal because that was my upbringing, okay? And I want you to know that the deepest healing came when I stopped waiting for other people to understand my pain, okay? And I gave myself permission to move forward. And this is what I was saying in one of my posts this week. Until you let this story go, this event, this situation, whatever it is for you, until you are ready to let it go, you will not move forward, because it becomes your identity. It becomes who you are, and it's not conscious. This is not a conscious thing. And what happens is your day-to-day life is just that story. And so it becomes Groundhog Day. But the closure is not always a conversation, okay? Sometimes closure is accepting the evidence. And the evidence is my childhood wounds attracted these type of people, friendships, workplaces, situations. If I had healed 20, 30 years ago, my life would have been very different. But I didn't, and I'm here now doing it, and I've been on this path now for 9 years. What I now know, I want to pass on to as many people as I can, because the work that you need to do to break all these cycles is a lot of mirror work, shadow work, inner child work, family systems, or internal family systems, which is parts work, somatic work, releasing it from your body. It's not just a matter of saying, oh, I'm not going to do that again, or I'm going to read a couple of books, or I'm going to listen to a few podcasts. Yes, they all help, but you actually need to do the processes and the techniques to help you through that healing journey, okay? And this is where a lot of people give up. So you can have people say, oh yeah, I'm going to do it, but they don't, because it gets too confronting and it gets too uncomfortable. And you will find a reason, your ego will find a reason, and your subconscious will find a reason to take you back to the old way, okay? And what that is, if you remember, there's 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. 90% of them are on autopilot. They're subconscious. So if you go back to an old default program, it will feel familiar. And your ego will justify you going back to that, okay? And this is where that 10% of conscious decision and choice making is what will push you through. And yes, it is uncomfortable because you're breaking a cycle of many decades, okay? And, you know, explain, the loneliness comes from no longer chasing, okay? You're not chasing explanations. You're not chasing accountability. You're not chasing apologies or validation. You've just accepted. You may feel empty, but you've stopped chasing, because you know that people can't meet you to the level that you're growing. And you're going to ask people to be accountable and apologize and do things they don't even know they've done. And this is the problem with healing. A lot of the time, people don't know that they've actually done something wrong, because that's their program and that's their belief system and that's their identity and that's their story. So we go back to the blueprint. If you don't know, you can't fix it, okay? And the sad thing is, people don't recognize, or they don't actually want to recognize your growth or your healing, because it means you're shining a light on their darkness. And people find that really, really confronting. And you will get people that just disappear. They'll fall away. It's like my analogy the other day with the eagle and the crow. And the crow is the only bird that attacks an eagle. And what it does is it jumps on its back and it pecks and pecks and pecks at its neck until the eagle doesn't fight, the eagle doesn't do anything, just spreads its wings, raises itself higher and higher and higher into the atmosphere. It ascends and it keeps going up higher and higher, and the crow cannot go that high because the air's too thin, so it drops off. That's the same when you as a human are ascending and people are picking at you or judging you or criticizing you. Don't attack. Don't fight back. Be so fine with where you're at. Keep rising, and the more you rise, the more those people will fall away. And again, this is not a blame game. This is not about people are good or bad. It is just what happens when people grow and ascend, because they're vibrating at a higher level and they don't align with any of those people anymore. And as I say, that is probably the toughest thing, because you go from being somebody, in my case, very, very social, very, very out there, very, into everything. I went to an opening of an envelope, okay, to not much happening. But I've probably never been happier, because I'm not wearing 50 million masks to fit into all those groups, to fit into all those friendships, to, force myself to be someone that I'm not. And I'm now, me, who I am right now, is the most authentic I've ever been in my entire life. Which is why some days, and I have been judged, but I don't care. Some days I'll do a post and I'll wear makeup and I'll have something on that I've been out, I've been dressed up or whatever. Other days you just get me how I am. Now, once upon a time, there is no way in hell I would have done that because of judgment. And I've had some pretty nasty comments come back, but I don't care, because who I am today is me. Who I am today, I've never been more comfortable to sit here and speak on camera than I am at the moment. So, guys, there's a next stage to this, which is a really beautiful stage, and it's the invisible signs you're actually healing. Okay, now I still get triggered. Okay, like, just because I've been on this healing journey, I still get triggered, but it's how I react now. It's what I do with it. Okay, the healing is not that you never feel activated. The healing is that you create a gap between what happens, what you feel, and what you do next. And that is 100% how it goes. Okay, healing is not never being triggered again, because that's just ridiculous. You're here on you're a soul here on a human experience. And healing is becoming responsible for what you do with the trigger. And that is exactly what we do. When we start to heal the trigger, there's less time that you're in it, and you will always be triggered by something. Okay, that's just how it is. But it's how you react. It's how you respond rather than react. You no longer write essays to somebody on a text message, okay, or defending your decisions that you make. You no longer need everyone to agree with your boundary, okay. You begin saying, that doesn't work for me. No. And that's a tough one. People don't like no, especially family. I'm not available for that. And I need time to think. Now, this is really hard for a lot of people to do, because, especially my people pleasers, imagine saying those 4 statements. That doesn't work for me. No, I'm not available for that. And I need time to think. You're going to ruffle a few feathers, but that is showing how much you're growing. Okay, you don't need to over-explain. Okay, you just need to stop asking permission to protect yourself. You don't need to ask anyone for permission. You can disappoint people without abandoning yourself. Okay, and this is one of the clearest signs of healing. Okay, someone being disappointed doesn't mean you have done something wrong. And how often do we go, oh God, what are they going to think? Oh, I've said no. Oh, they're going to be upset with me. Oh, I should have done this. No. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Your body knows before your brain knows. We say yes for all the wounds that the rejection and the abandonment and the low self-worth and the no love, and you're looking for love in all the wrong places. You want to belong, so you'd say yes to everything, but you get exhausted, okay? Someone being angry does not automatically make your boundary unfair. It's like I say, people that don't like your boundaries are the people that have benefited from you not having any. And suddenly you're setting boundaries and you're now a troublemaker. Now you're making big mountains out of molehills. Now you're being selfish. Oh, all the things I've done for you. Nope. Discomfort is not always danger. Okay? For my trauma people, the discomfort of setting a boundary in a healed environment is growth. That's progress. That is massive progress, okay? Healing often looks like someone else is unhappy with your decision. And yeah, that is often the case. But that's a blessing for you because it's shown how much work you have done, okay? And you stop chasing people who withdraw. Now, all my people who pick avoidant and dismissive avoidance and narcissistic partners, people that were unavailable, we would chase and chase and chase, okay? Because we wanted to prove that we were worthy of the love, we were worthy of their attention, we were worthy of all the things we needed filled, okay? You notice distance without immediately panicking, apologizing, begging for reassurance, proving your worth, and taking all the blame. Now, how many times have we sat there, or people sat there and taken the blame for everything that happened just to, take that pain away from everyone else? If you took the blame, you could end that conflict, okay? Childhood wound. You let behavior provide the information. That's a healed person. You don't do the chasing anymore. You let it go. Even when you know that something has happened and the old you or the unhealed version of you would want to defend yourself, you don't. You just let it go, because you can't change people's minds that have already committed to not understanding you, okay? And I know that's a hard one, and I found myself in that situation over the last few years. And that was probably one of my toughest lessons, because I knew I had the proof, I have the evidence, but it was pointless. It was absolutely pointless to bring it to the surface, because people had already made their mind up. And the old me, 100% would have been devastated. But the healed version, I just went, okay, that was one of my biggest lessons. And did I like it? Not at all. But was I grateful? 100% I was. You stop trying to convince people to choose you. Okay? Know your worth. Understand that you don't need anybody to approve of you or to choose you. You choose yourself. When you start to choose you, everything changes. And I promise you that. You start putting you first, everything in your world will change. You become less interested in potential. Oh, yes. You stop loving people only for who they could become. How many of us have fallen in love with potential? You pay attention to patterns, consistency, accountability, emotional maturity, and present behavior. Okay? Stop falling in love with potential is a definite sign that you have recognized that was a pattern and a person that you attracted. When you step away from that, you know you're healing. You actually know that, you know what, this person's not available. They've got stuff going on. They haven't cleaned up their mess. They're push-pull. They're here, they're there. They're here one minute, they're not the next. They future fake. They do all of these things. A healed version of you will go, yeah, no, thank you. I've been there, done it. I don't need that again. And sometimes that's a test from the universe. Whether you believe that or not, the universe will give you scenarios and situations where to see how healed you really are and what you will do with it. Your circle may become smaller, and this will feel like failure, okay? It may actually mean you are more selective. You value emotional safety, especially in relationships. You no longer connect through dysfunction, so no more trauma bonds, no more stories, and you prefer depth over access. A smaller circle is not automatically proof of healing. Now, hear me out here. If everyone is always the problem and you are always the enlightened one, that is not growth. That is absolutely not growth. That may be avoidance, superiority, or unhealed defensiveness, and that is called spiritual bypassing. Now, when I say your group becomes small, when you start to align with people that are at your level, are on the healing journey, are aligned with your values and your beliefs, that's what I'm talking about, where you can share achievements and where you can share what's going on. And you are also very open to hearing constructive criticism, being made accountable. I have got the most amazing friends in my life at the moment who, that I've met on this journey, that they keep me accountable. And I know myself, I don't ask anyone to do anything that I haven't done myself. And am I tough with some people? 100% I am, because that's what makes me a good coach. And I don't let people give up on themselves, because I spent my entire life giving up on myself. And the best thing I ever did was stop doing that. And it gave me my life back. It gave me gave me Tash, right? And the other thing is I'm setting boundaries, okay? And or ask yourself, where do I need to set boundaries, okay? And are you setting boundaries or are you building walls, okay? There's a big difference between setting a boundary and putting up your armor, okay? Healing is healthy boundaries. Wounded is armors up, build the wall, okay? And am I choosing peace or avoiding intimacy, okay? Now, this is a really tough one, because a lot of people who have done a lot of healing find themselves single for a long time because they won't go into the dating pools because they know that it's full of low vibrational, wounded people. And again, it's not judgment, it's not a blame game, it's just how it is. Yes, there's been a few people that I know have met through dating apps, but 90% of people end up in the same boat, just a different face, different location. And what you have to ask yourself is, am I choosing peace or am I avoiding putting myself in a situation where I could get hurt? Okay. Now, it is research-based and common knowledge that intimate relationships is where you do your most growth. It's called relational healing. Okay. And relational healing is where your partner triggers you. They're mirrors. Okay. When you are triggered by your partner, that's where the growth comes. And if you're both on the healing journey, it can be the most amazing growth and learning and lessons. But if one's on the journey and one's not, it can be very challenging. And that's another topic again, okay? You recover quickly when you're a healed version. You may still experience grief and anger and fear and disappointment and sadness, but you no longer stay there that long, whereas before people would stay there for days, okay? You know how to return to yourself very quickly. And yes, it is about processing the feeling. You've got to feel it to heal it. You've got to understand where it came from. Where did that wound come from, and where in your body did you feel it? And what age were you roughly? Because your wound is not an adult wound, it's a child wound. And you've got to think back to, okay, did I react as like a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old? What did I react as? Because that's how old the wound is. All right? And you just don't stay in that state for long. You know how to return to yourself, and you do not make one painful moment mean your whole life is falling apart. Whereas before it was catastrophic, it was drama, it was chaos, it was stress, and you would exacerbate a story and you would embellish things and you'd make it worse, you would make it worse than it already was, okay? You make a mountain out of a molehill because that was your upbringing, chaos, drama, that's how you fed your needs, okay? That was your familiar. But when you're healed, you sit back and you go, okay, yeah, that stung a bit. Okay, where did that come from? All right, what is it showing me? What's the lesson? Okay, you stop needing to prove that you're healing, okay? And this is, you do not need to announce that you have evolved, okay? You do not need to convince people that you are healed. Your choices begin to speak for you. You become less interested in winning arguments. That's 100% one of my biggest ones. I don't even bother anymore. Exposing people, tick. Correcting every false story. I used to fix everything. I used to go, no, that's not how it was. No, that's not how, you need to do this. I just sit back now. And forcing others to see your perspective. I will say to people now when they say, hey, I just need some advice, I go, do you want me to listen? Or would you like me to tell you what I believe and coming from a healed version? And if they go, no, I just want you to listen. No drama. I don't put my 2 bobs worth in. I let them learn, okay? And that's a really good thing for people to be able to do. And I know I've got a heap of beautiful clients who don't need me anymore and they don't ring. And that was a little bit lonely because I was like, oh, they don't need me anymore. But I actually went, oh, but I've helped them so much they don't need me. Like, that's beautiful. Like, I spun that around and went, oh my God, they've worked that out themselves. I'm so proud of them. Like, they've done this. And if someone does want my advice, I will say to them, where are you at? What did you, I'll go through the processes that we do. And if they can figure it out themselves, boom, I'm stoked. But if they need a little bit of help, I'll help them. Because this is what healing is. And when you have a community that helps each other, it's beautiful. Are we healing or avoiding? And this is just I think this is really important to know the difference, okay? So not every ending is healing. Not every blocked number is a boundary. Interesting, right? Not every lonely season means you have outgrown everyone. And not every disagreement is toxicity. I want you to ask yourself these questions. And I'll say them slow so that if you're writing this down, or you can rewind and have a listen. Am I leaving because the relationship is unhealthy? Or am I leaving because accountability makes me uncomfortable? Am I protecting my peace? Or am I avoiding difficult conversations? This is really great questions within a relationship and a friendship and a workplace. Am I setting a boundary, or am I punishing someone? This is where you have to really be radically honest with where you're at, okay? And am I trusting my intuition, or am I allowing fear to make every person seem unsafe? Now, we cannot grow without the lesson. We cannot grow without the discomfort. So if you're avoiding any type of situation that's going to cause you pain, that's avoidance. Now, I say this out of absolute love and respect. You're not going to heal without exposure. So put yourself out there. If somebody asks you on a date or wants to go out, go out. Doesn't mean it has to go anywhere, but if you get an off feeling from the start, ask yourself, is that my fear, or is there genuinely something my body's not telling me? Okay, there is a difference. If you're honest with yourself, if you're protecting yourself, You will know it, okay? Healing is not learning how to cut everyone off. Healing is learning who requires a boundary and who deserves a conversation and who no longer deserves access. Now, this is the thing I want to get across to everybody. When you have healed and when you have done a lot of the processes of setting boundaries, understanding your own needs, recognizing your own parts that you've played in your suffering and your pain and your choices in life, you can look at that in a very healthy way. And you can look at it in a very honest way. And again, I'm not condoning abuse. I'm not condoning any type of assaults, sexual, physical, emotional, mental, financial, anything like that. But own the part that attracted you to that person. And this is not about why didn't you leave, because that's another topic altogether, which I will cover one day, because that's not easy. Okay. What this is about is recognizing whether you are healed or you are avoiding. And radical honesty will give you that answer. Okay. Healing may feel lonely because you are no longer available for the roles, behaviors, and relationships that required you to abandon yourself. Remind you that lonely stage is often just a transition. Okay? It takes time, but it is the best thing that ever happens. The old identity is falling away. The new identity is still coming and forming. The old connections may no longer fit, and the healthier connections may not have arrived yet. This is what we call the void, okay? Be patient in that period, okay? Don't romanticize being lonely as you're this great spiritual guru and version of yourself that no one can touch. No. Healing is still living in the 3D world, even though we're moving to the 5D, being in the 3D world and recognizing your triggers and recognizing how quick you've changed and how you how you react to a situation and adapt very quickly to reversing it, flipping it, and coming back to a grounded and more centered person. And this is the thing. I don't want you to run back to unhealthy relationships, okay? Simply because you're feeling, oh my God, I'm in this void. I don't know where I belong. Healing is promoted as this, oh, it's calm, it's candles, it's yoga, it's all of this. That's bullshit. That's what it is. It is soul destroying. It's ego death. It's facing demon upon demon. It is recognizing parts of yourself you've pushed away for so long. It is coming in contact with things that you didn't know, you've suppressed and you've pushed down. Healing is stripping away everything you know and starting again. It is ugly, it is painful, it is scary, but it is so rewarding. It gives you back who you are meant to be. It gives you back your clean slate. You can reprogram your blueprint. You can reprogram your stories and your belief systems. We work on your neural pathways. We get you back on track to rebuilding a life, okay? And I want to finish off with a couple of questions, and I want this to be interactive. So guys, write these questions down. And if you miss them, either press record or contact me, because I want nothing more than to help people heal. Okay, it's my mission, it's my passion. So these are the last questions I would like you to write down. What am I no longer willing to tolerate? Who was I required to become to belong in my old relationships? Am I lonely because I am healing, or isolated because I am afraid? That's a good one. What invisible evidence shows me that I am growing? And where am I still abandoning myself to keep someone else comfortable? Okay. You may feel lonely because you are no longer who you were, but you have not fully met who you are becoming. And that's what I'm talking about, the void. Think about the caterpillar in the cocoon and what he has to do in that cocoon before he becomes a butterfly. And if someone breaks that cocoon, you actually kill it. So this is what I say to people, and I was guilty of this early days. I wanted to help everyone. I wanted to speed up. Everyone's growth journey is individual, and it'll take them as long as it needs to take them. If you don't give up, you will become the butterfly, okay? And do not mistake the space between those two versions for failure. It is a void that needs to happen, okay? That space is where your freedom begins. So, guys, I hope that has helped understand why it becomes lonely when you're healing, and the silent signs that you have healed or are, on the healing journey, and the things that are changing. Thank you for joining me today. As always, I'm so grateful for all the shares and all the people that follow me on on Spotify, on YouTube and Apple. Please follow, subscribe, pass it on to as many people as you can. The more education we get out there for this, the better. You can also now contact me on tashrogers.com, and that will take you to a website. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for listening. Have an amazing week. And next week I will have a couple of guest speakers back. We've just had a few hiccups with some things going on. So I hope this has helped. As always, please reach out. And also, I've had a lot of people ask me about my online course. Please, the link's in my Instagram bio. It's also on tashrogers.com. Please check it out. This will help you with all this stuff that I talk about day in, day out. So thanks again. Have a great week, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.